Thank you to our board member, Jordan Salido, for creating that opening montage. Jordan, that was great, and the song was perfect. Perfect way to kick off this event. Welcome, everybody. We're so happy you're here. My name is Danny Dean. I live in Pasadena, and about 3 years ago, my husband and I were lucky enough to come across Swing Left San Gabriel Valley online. We attended our very first event, which was a letter writing party at Donna and Jeff Jaffe's house. From the minute we walked into their house, we knew that we had found our new home base for friendship, community, and activism. I am so honored to be on the board of the San Gabriel chapter of Swing Left, and I'm super happy to be your MC for today's 2022 kickoff party. And I want to explain, so Swing Left is a national organization. And of course, here in San Gabriel Valley, we are one of the local chapters. I think there's 250 chapters all over the United States. It's amazing. So when you hear of SLSGV today, it took me a minute to figure out what that exactly meant when I started, but it's Swing Left San Gabriel Valley. And I wanna thank Rob Hubble, our very special guest and keynote speaker, for being here today. Hi, Rob. I want to thank Matt Caffrey for being here with us today. Matt is the Senior Director of Grassroots Community Organizing with Swing Left National. So we're super happy to have someone from National on this event with us today. All right, part of my job as an MC is to, first of all, anyone who's just joining, if you could shut off your camera, that would be wonderful. It'll help with any video glitches we don't want to encounter in this Zoom. So thank you for that. Part of my job as the MC is to tell the agenda. What's happening? What are we doing here for the next hour or so? Well, first we're going to hear opening remarks from the co-chair, Donna. We are going to watch a really cool video that was written and produced by board member Lottie Ferris Knowles and her husband, John Knowles. Thank you, John and Lottie. The video is going to roll out the Swing Left Nationals 2022 strategy and objectives. And of course, it's also going to roll out and explain what the objectives and strategies for our local chapter here in San Gabriel Valley will be. So 2022 is a super important year because we are having midterm elections that we are going to be very involved with. All right, after the video, we are going to hear from the amazing Rob Hubble. Super excited about that. Then we're going to have a question and answer period, and then Donna will make closing remarks. If all goes as planned, this event will take about 60 minutes, give or take a minute or two. All right, before I introduce Donna, I want to share Swing Left's community agreement. This is something that we say at the beginning of every Swing Left, and we highlight it because we want to highlight what our goal is and what we're doing here at Swing Left. Our goal is to create and foster a safe, inclusive, and equitable environment for our volunteers, the greater Swing Left community, and of course, the voters we contact. So as we work with Swing Left, please keep in mind that we are organizing to elect Democrats chosen by their community. We are focusing on inclusivity and respect. We are building a sustainable and strong progressive movement. And we are approaching our work with humility. And of course, we are respecting each other's time and resources. Now, I mentioned there's going to be a question and answer period near the end of this kickoff party. And so during this event, at any time, please go to your chat feature and ask a question if you have a question. The board members will try to answer the questions in chat. Some of the questions will be saved for the question answer period. And if you ask a question in chat, please let us know if it's a question for Rob or if it's a question for Swing Left so we can direct the question appropriately during the question and answer period. And forgive us if we don't get to all the questions. This is such a great, big, wonderful group. And if we don't get to your question, I'm sure you'll understand. All right, without further ado, I'm going to introduce co-chair Donna. I really could spend this whole hour singing Donna's praises for all that she does, but I will just sum it up by saying that she is the heart, soul, brains, and brawn of our chapter, and we are super lucky to have her. Donna, the microphone is all yours.
Danny, thank you so much for that introduction. But as Hillary Rodham Clinton said, it takes a village. And I couldn't have done what I do without this incredible board. So thank you, guys. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Wow, I am overwhelmed by how many of you have chosen to have lunch with us today. And I'm particularly excited because two very special people are on this call. Max and Sienna Hutton, my Toronto grandchildren, who are 14 and 10 respectively. Thank you guys for being here. Remember, you're never too young to have ideals or to stand up for what you believe in. Okay, to begin, I want to thank everyone for all you've done these last several years. Together, our SLSGV family wrote more than 54,000 get out the vote letters for the 2020 presidential election, and that was just overwhelming. Those letters, as well as the calls we made and the texts we sent, contributed to Biden winning in the battleground states. And then something none of us really expected to happen happened. Georgia flipped and Democrats gained control of the Senate, pushing Mitch McConnell out of his role as majority leader and putting the Dems in charge. Because of what we did, what you did, we've witnessed a year of foundational accomplishments by the Biden administration. But there have also been some unexpected outcomes as a result of Biden's victory. Instead of feeling relief and optimism, we're careening from one political crisis to another. We're suffering from an epidemic of misinformation and disinformation that has unfortunately intensified the depolarization within our country. We're witnessing the slow, painful death of the grand old party and the rise of the Trumplican party, whose deceitful and corrupt members of Congress, like their morally bankrupt leader, care more about power than they do about upholding their oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. The reactionary majority of the Supreme Court is ignoring the words of the Constitution for their own political purposes. In so doing, justice is becoming blind to the needs of the majority of the American people. And although both the House and the Senate are controlled by Democrats, the margin in the House is very narrow, and the Senate is tied 50-50. What's more, two Senate dinos, Democrats in name only, are impeding the passage of Biden's agenda. The result has been that Biden doesn't have enough Democrats behind legislation like Build Back Better, the Freedom to Vote Act, and the all-important John Lewis Voting Acts to get them passed. We can and we must do better than this. And the midterms are our chance to do so. Here are just a few of the potentially dangerous consequences if there were to be congressional GOP wins. We could lose the already slim majority we hold in the House. If that were the case, Kevin McCarthy could become Speaker. We could lose the 50-50 split we have in the Senate, which would send Mitch McConnell back to his reign as Majority Leader. The loss of either the House or the Senate would be devastating and would dash any hope of Biden's agenda moving forward. And if all that's not chilling enough, the House committee investigating the January 6th insurrection would be dismantled. The brazen attempt to overthrow the democracy, our democracy, which was witnessed around the world in plain sight, would officially just be swept under the rug. Now is not the time to despair, but to recommit. And in the video that follows, we'll explain how.
Welcome to Swing Left San Gabriel Valley's 2022 Kickoff event and strategy rollout. We're ready to get started. We hope you are too. Today we'll share with you Swing Left National's 2022 strategy for winning the midterm elections, SLSGV's strategy for how we'll support that mission, SLSGV's upcoming events designed to inspire and re-energize you, and how you can get involved, whether you have 1 hour or 100 hours to give this year. So let's get started. If you're new to SLSGV, you might be wondering, what is Swing Left? Swing Left is a national organization that was formed in 2017 after Trump was elected with a mission to build a lasting culture of grassroots activism to help Democrats win elections. Its first goal was to turn the House blue in the 2018 midterms, and we did. Swing Left is pragmatic. It identifies and supports candidates in races that it has pre-vetted as winnable for Democrats. When you volunteer with Swing Left, your time and energy are wisely invested. To illustrate just how that strategy translates into action, in 2020, Swing Left volunteers wrote 21.5 million letters to voters, made 9.1 million get-out-the-vote calls, and raised $26.7 million for Democratic candidates in our efforts to elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, keep the House, and flip the Senate. Swing Left has also established these community agreements, and we'll be following these principles as we move forward in our activism together. As we all know, this is a critical year with midterm elections less than 9 months away. As Donna mentioned earlier, a lot is at stake. Swing Left's 2022 mission is to protect and expand Democratic majorities in the House and Senate, and to strengthen democracy at the state level. Swing Left has identified the races shown here to focus on this year. Swing Left does not endorse primary candidates or organize activities for those races, so other than advanced fundraising, its work in those races will begin once we know who the Democratic candidates are. Swing Left will also be rolling out its Swing District Finder in early March. This new tool will enable you to find the swing district or state closest to you when you type in your zip code. When you choose a state or district, the page will present data on the Republican and Democratic candidates, as well as why Swing Left selected this race. From there, you can choose from the following actions: subscribe to updates, donate, write letters, or join a group. Swing Left's 2022 strategy is broken into 3 phases. Phase 1 is pre-primary and runs from January to June. Phase 1's focus will be on recruiting new members, letter writing and canvassing to encourage people to register to vote, training for phone banking and other grassroots action, and fundraising. Swing Left has established several funds for Democratic candidates, including the new Defend Democracy Fund. Money donated to this fund will support candidates running against Republican incumbents who refuse to certify the 2020 presidential election. Money raised early on can be the most helpful in these races. Phase 2 is post-primary, from June to September. During Phase 2, Swing Left will lean into organizing events for vote forward letter writing, phone banking, and canvassing, as well as holding training sessions for all of these activities. And Phase 3 is Get Out the Vote. From September until Election Day on November 8th, the goals will be to send our vote forward letters and to step up our canvassing and phone banking efforts. Swing Left uses every data source at its disposal to target races across the country so members can protect and expand democracy and defeat the GOP. Swing Left San Gabriel Valley will support and build upon Swing Left National's 2022 strategy. We'd love to be your home base for political activism, and we promise to make it easy, safe, and most importantly, fun. Like Swing Left National, we have 4 primary tools in our arsenal: writing, calling, canvassing, and fundraising. You can choose the actions you feel most comfortable participating in, or you can try something new with our support. First, let's talk about writing. In 2020, SLSGV volunteers wrote more than 54,000 letters to our fellow citizens, and we'd like to match or surpass that number in 2022. At letter writing parties, or LWPs, we gather in person or virtually on Zoom to write letters together. LWP events are listed on Mobilize or in SLSGV's e-blasts, or you can host your own and invite your friends. Board members are happy to help lead your events and explain the process to those attending. In addition to their political purpose, our 2022 LWPs will be more fun, social, and entertaining for everyone. Each event will have a musical theme and a guest speaker chatting about non-political topics, such as wine appreciation, art, or travel adventures. We'll create a monthly calendar so you can plan ahead if you'd like to attend. We also support postcarding events sponsored by other grassroots groups such as these. Postcarding opportunities will be listed in our 2022 e-blasts as we hear about them. Also, we know letter writing expenses can add up. For members who are strapped for funds, we're able to subsidize the purchase of envelopes and stamps. And if you don't have a printer, we can print and deliver letters to your home or provide an easy pickup option. Just let us know how we can help you make a difference. Next, let's talk about phone banking. Phone banking is another important and effective way to encourage people to vote in an upcoming election, especially in this time of physical distancing. Swing Left uses remote phone banking tools to enable you to quickly and easily call likely Democrat voters. You'll receive a script and a list of voters to call. A phone, internet access, and a laptop computer or tablet are all you'll need to get started. Your privacy is protected, as you'll never use your personal phone number to make the calls. This is the same process for text banking as well. SLSGV will provide phone bank training to make calling easier and more natural, even for introvert activists. Canvassing allows us to engage with and encourage voters in face-to-face conversations. But the COVID-19 virus created a roadblock to this activity. We're hoping the pandemic will subside in the next few months and that we can once again add canvassing to our voter contact arsenal. SLSGV will always follow pandemic protocols during canvassing, such as keeping these activities outdoors and requiring masks, social distancing, and proof of vaccination. We can also provide virtual training sessions. Be aware that Swing Left provides us with addresses for likely Democratic voters only, so our door-to-door canvassing conversations are focused on making sure people know when, where, and how to vote, not debating which candidate to vote for. Swing Left is also adding high-traffic canvassing options, which entail going to areas such as shopping districts and public parks, or events such as rallies or marches, and engaging potential voters there. And finally, fundraising. SLSGV has set a chapter goal of raising a minimum of $30,000 for Democratic candidates in 2022. Besides encouraging ongoing donations through Swing Left's funds, we'll be putting the fun back in fundraising with other creative ways of collecting money for Dems. First, through online and community outreach, we'll explore partnering with local businesses that are willing to donate a percentage of sales if customers mention SLSGV on certain dates. We're also looking into holding a monthly auction of unique items and experiences. Stay tuned for updates and upcoming SLSGV e-blasts, and be sure to reach out to us if you, your business, or someone you know would like to participate in donating goods, services, or a portion of proceeds from either. Second, we plan to hold at least one fabulous fundraising event this year, hopefully in person and outdoors when the weather is nice and COVID permitting. This event will include food and drink, live music, a guest speaker, and a few more surprises. So that's our 2022 strategy. We invite you to participate in any activities that excite you. No matter where your interests lie or how much time you have to contribute, we appreciate your getting involved. Besides asking for your gifts of time and treasure, SLSGV would like to give back to you. We know that activism is demanding, and we want to celebrate our victories while also supporting and energizing each other when the going gets tough. Along with adding more fun to our political actions, we'll be offering programs specifically designed to create community, recharge our batteries, and uplift us when we need it most. Our Programs Committee was proud to present their first member-focused event this past fall, Maintaining Joy in Times of Social Change, led by therapist, poet, and motivational speaker Thea Monnier. Over the coming year, we'll be hosting other inspirational speakers on topics that support our activism. These events will be held both virtually and in person outdoors as weather and COVID protocols permit. We're also excited to announce our first Programs Committee event of 2022, a virtual film series that will explore various forms of activism and introduce us to ordinary Americans who dared to take a stand in order to help form a more perfect union. Keep an eye on the e-blasts for more information on this event and others coming up. And of course, we're always interested to hear your ideas for programs that can enrich and galvanize our membership. Just email us when inspiration hits. We'll also be sending you a very short survey next month. Please take just a couple of minutes to fill it out so we can find out how to best support you. Our first two political actions of 2022 are planned for next month: a high-traffic canvassing event on Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena, and a Zoom letter writing party at the end of February. Would you like to get more involved in SLSGV beyond participating in our political actions? We've formed several committees to help us work more productively for you, and we'd love to have you on board to volunteer for any that align with your skills and interests. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to engaging in this important work together, and we're grateful for your participation in whatever form it takes.
Wow, thank you, Lottie and John, for that incredible video. Okay, you've seen our game plan, but you may be asking, where do I find the will and energy to start all over? I ask myself that same question every day, and my answer is from finding inspiration. And with that in mind, it's now my great honor and privilege to introduce the man who speaks from the heart every day, who educates us, who tells it like it is, and who motivates us to keep pushing forward. My fellow SLSGV members, I am thrilled to introduce you to the creator and writer of today's edition newsletter and my personal inspiration, Rob Hubble. Rob?
Well, thank you, Donna. And let me just say, wow, you guys really are incredibly organized. I'm going to be linking to this recording in the newsletter with your permission, because I think what you've done has packed so much information and direction and hope into a few minutes. It's just truly impressive. So let me start and just say I have 15 minutes. I promise to stay within the 15 minutes. My name is Robert Hubble. I write a daily newsletter called Today's Edition Newsletter that actually started as an email to my 3 adult daughters and my wife after the accidental victory by Donald Trump in 2017. It's now grown into a national and a global newsletter. It's my honor to be here to speak to you today. One of the things that I do in the newsletter is I try to focus on optimism and lifting people up. And I frequently get questions from readers of the newsletter or comments that say, well, thank you for being optimism, but are you sincere? Do you really believe it? And I'm here to tell you, yes, my optimism is sincere. And the reason I'm optimistic about the future of American democracy is because of you. I mean, let's think about this. 6 years ago, Swing Left did not exist. And now, on a Saturday afternoon, I don't know how many people are on the call, but we have dozens, maybe hundreds of people who are taking time out of their lives to say that they care about preserving democracy. And so this is one chapter of Swing Left. There are dozens or hundreds of chapters of Swing Left, people just like you all over the nation who have made the same commitment. And now take Swing Left and multiply that by Fair Fight and Indivisible and SEAL Team 6 and Sister District and dozens and even hundreds of other organizations. And you know what we have? We have a cadre of battle-tested people who didn't exist or who weren't organized 6 years ago. And it is an incredible asset that we have. There are millions of people like you and me who are engaged in the fight for the first time in your life. And if that doesn't make you optimistic, I don't know what will. And let me just say, I just finished a podcast associated with a newsletter that was focused on youth from Next Generation Politics. We had 3 high school students on there. And that pumped up my optimism even more. One of the high school students who made me feel like a slacker when I was in high school said, we're going to be governing this country in 30 years. And so that's how we keep hope. We look at all of this division, but we know that we will be in charge 30 years from now. And it struck me that all we really have to do is to hold down the fort until the next generation changes, until demographics take over, until our efforts bear fruit. And let me say this. We have a lot of reason to be hopeful. It's particularly difficult right now because of the cynicism and the nonstop bad faith of the Republican Party. And that is compounded by this negative media narrative, which seems to have taken over everything. I love the presentation that you put together about everything positive that Joe Biden has done. And the press doesn't want to hear it because it's not a story that drives revenue and clicks. So the media can be exhausting and enervating. So what do we do with that? Exactly what we're doing here. We're in community with others who can lift one another up. So I want to just talk for a few minutes about perspective and about the long term, because these are the places that I go when I hear about the latest thing that the Republicans are going to do to undermine the Constitution. So let me just start with my central thesis, which is we're going to win. And the only question is, when? The reason that Republicans are fighting so tenaciously at this moment in time is they know this is their high watermark. This is it. This is their last chance. The Republican Party is the 3rd largest political organization in the United States, the Democratic Party being the 2nd, and independents being the largest voting bloc. So Republicans control about 25% of the registered voters across the country, and it is only going to get worse from them because of demographics. If you look at reports by Pew Research and other organizations, America is becoming more urban, more educated, younger, and more diverse. Those are all great things for democracy and for Democrats and for the Constitution, and they're threatening things for the Republican Party because, frankly, they're driving urban, educated, younger, and diverse voters away from their party. As I said, I think Republicans are at their high watermark. When Texas turns blue, when Florida flips blue, and they will, it's just a question of time. I don't believe there will ever be another Republican president. It's almost mathematically impossible. Now, am I saying we just sit back and wait for demographics to turn the tide? No. But just like that high schooler said to me today, in 30 years, we're going to be governing. We should take great confidence from the fact that a great nation that is becoming more educated, more urban, more globalized is going to be a more fertile ground for democracy and for what it is we're striving to do. The second point that I want to address is to simply say that I think Republicans have extracted the maximum advantage that they can from gerrymandering. Now, political experts might disagree with me, but let's recognize that in 2011 and 2012, the last time that Republicans were able to gerrymander after a national census, they used that advantage to the maximum extent, so much so that it's almost impossible. It's very difficult for them to wring any more advantage out of a voting populace that is becoming younger, more diverse, more urban. And so we can see, first of all, that as they try to do that, as they try to squeeze out another district, it is so patently illegal. It is so patently racist. It is so patently partisan that courts in Ohio, the Ohio Supreme Court and the 3-judge panel in Alabama are saying, oh no, that you just can't do that. Go back and start over. And that just shows how little is left on the table for gerrymandering. Now, I don't want to minimize the efforts that Republicans are undergoing. We should fight them in the courts. We should fight them with turnout. But we have to recognize that gerrymandering is not some sort of Death Star, GOP political Death Star that's going to destroy us. It is not. They gerrymandered as best they could in 2010 and in 2012. There were 5 congressional elections for the House after that. They won 3, we won 2. So we can overcome the effects of gerrymandering. Don't let anybody tell you differently. Second thing I want to say is all of this discussion about voter suppression, very serious. I am not minimizing it, but we should also be careful not to exaggerate it so that we demotivate people we need to motivate. The most frequently cited statistic is that there have been 400 voter suppression laws proposed after 2020. That's bad. But the operative word is proposed. Yes, there were 400 laws that were proposed, but only a fraction of those were passed. In fact, the last time I checked with the Brennan Center, I think it was 33 laws enacted in 19 states. That's bad, I agree, but 33 is not 400. So let's not scare people with something that hasn't happened. And let's look at those 33 laws and say that, okay, 4 of them are kind of mixed. They take some things away and they give some things. 2 of them are extraordinarily narrow. So maybe now you're down to a couple of dozen laws. But you know what? After 2020, there were 26 laws that were passed that expanded voting rights. Do we ever hear about those? No, because it doesn't fit with the media narrative of the sky is falling and the Republicans are going to conquer us all through voter suppression. Voter suppression is a blunt instrument. As I wrote last week in the newsletter, when you try to suppress the vote, it affects everyone, Democrats, Republicans, and independents. And what we're seeing in Texas is all of these new complicated laws that they have for mail ballots are hitting older voters particularly hard. They're not able to register for mail ballots. Well, in Texas, older voters tend to vote Republican. Now, Republicans are scrambling in Texas to undo the damage that they've created. My point is not that we should be happy about that or take some sort of satisfaction in it. My point is that we have to recognize that when voter suppression is passed, yes, it hurts us. It hurts everyone. And our job is to overcome that voter suppression with turnout. Every voter suppression law can be defeated with turnout. We are not helpless. I want to say just a word about the media. It's not your imagination. They're being unfair to Joe Biden. There was a study that I cited in one of my newsletters where someone did an analysis of what's going on in the media. And although Biden has accomplished more than almost any president in the last 25 years in his first year, that study showed that he's getting much more negative press than did Donald Trump, who had a disastrous first year in office. So it's not your imagination. The press is being unfair to Biden. There's not a great upside in beating up on the press and wishing that they would do differently. There is one thing that we can do. We can fill the information vacuum. We can go into that blogosphere, into letters to the editor and editorials, and write the truth, the kinds of things that were in this presentation that you've done today. Media companies are hungry for content. Give it to them, but give it to them with the truth. I have been on a campaign with my newsletter telling readers that they should write letters to the editor and write op-eds. And people are writing back to me and saying, hey, you know what? I wrote a letter to, the leading newspaper in Kansas. They published it. Or I wrote a letter. They asked me to turn it into an op-ed. They're hungry for content. So let's finish that. 2 final points. One is, let's not grant Republicans superpowers they don't have. Somehow when the media talks about the Republicans, it's like they're going to crush Democrats in 2022 and 2024. Oh yeah? They're led by a twice impeached, failed coup plotter who is driving away from the party everyone who will not, on bended knee, swear fealty to him. That is not a good thing. And you can see in North Carolina and other states, Republicans are refusing to get out of the race, even though Trump is supporting their opponent. So his power is waning, but it's also destructive. We have our own challenges, but we have to recognize that Trump is on the ballot in every single race, whether his name appears there or not, because those Republican candidates are going to have to swear fealty to him and endorse the big lie and endorse the misogyny and the racism and the white supremacy in order to get his blessing. Now, it's incumbent on us to come forward with a positive message. We can't rely on Republicans to defeat themselves. That's not a winning strategy. So let me close here just with a few words of exhortation. So we're in a marathon, and remaining hopeful is hard. And we have to support one another. We have to lift one another up. When our friends and colleagues and fellow members of Swing Left are feeling down, we have to be their inspiration. And we have to do that as best we can, use words if necessary, but more importantly, lead by example. Let them see you being engaged and positive and active. And then when you're feeling down, someone else will return that favor to you. So we're going to win. We just have to lift one another up, remain positive, and make it through the next couple of years, because I really do have the sense that the tide of history is turning. And once it turns, it is not going to turn back. And that's a very good thing for us. So let me close my remarks there.
Rob, thank you so much. I feel like I can exhale after hearing you speak. Thank you. And I want to thank you, not just for today, but you have given me hope every day for the past 2 years as I've read your daily newsletter. And I know that you know this, but I'm going to give you a tiny example. Your voice is heard far and wide. On this Zoom is my lifelong friend, Cecilia Block from upstate New York, and not upstate New York, I'm sorry, Sleepy Hollow, New York. And she was in Ecuador for a year, called me and said, you have to read this newsletter every day. It is amazing. And I have, and thank you, Cecilia. Thank you, Rob. I could go on and on. Just thank you so much. All right, we're now going to go to Renee Rubin, our board member, for the question and answer period. So Rob, if you can stay unmuted, because I think you're going to get a couple questions for sure. Sure. And we have about 8 or 10 minutes for the question and answer period. And as we're doing the question and answer period, we are going to put a Google document in the chat, and you can open it if you want and sign up to be on any of our committees in our local chapter. So if that's of an interest to you, please go to the chat, check out the Google document and add your name. And now I'll turn it over to Renee for the question and answer period.
Oh, okay. Welcome again, Rob, and thank you so much for such an inspiring talk. I was wondering if you could give a few more comments based upon the chat about gerrymandering and voter suppression and what we as volunteers can do to kind of work on that.
That's a great question. And because of the unfortunate failure to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the Freedom to Vote Act, I think our attention has to shift to supporting those organizations that are going to be engaged in litigation challenges to gerrymandering. Mark Elias's organization, the Lawyers Committee on Civil Rights Under the Law, the ACLU, Fair Fight, the League of Women Voters. These are litigation, they have filed successful court challenges to gerrymandering this year. The League of Women Voters was involved in overturning the Ohio maps. So that's point one. Voter suppression, you all have the answer in your hands. Your postcarding, your canvassing, your on-the-street events. The answer to voter suppression is turnout. But it's also truth. It's also telling people that the fact that some state has engaged in voter suppression doesn't mean that they can't vote. If they show up, their vote will be accepted. It's a sad commentary that we may be asking some of our brothers and sisters to stand in long lines, for 4 hours or 6 hours, and that's not right. And God bless them for doing that. But let's encourage them to do so. Mail voting is an incredibly effective way to avoid voter suppression, and registering now or re-registering or making certain that you are registered will do it. I hope that's responsive.
Thank you so much. That's a very good answer, and I think gives us a lot to think about. One of our members in the chat asked this question. Do you agree that 57% of GOP voters believe that Biden is not the legitimate president? And what do you suggest we do about things like that going forward?
I agree that that's the statistic that is reported based on valid polling. I don't believe that 57% of Republicans don't believe that Joe Biden is president. I've been holding an article about an op-ed by a gentleman in the New York Times who has written on this recently. His name will come to me in a moment, Thomas Edsall. He wrote a very interesting article. And the thesis, and this is based on polling, is that belief in the big lie has become the functional equivalent of a secret handshake or a gang signal or some other type of recognition that you're part of the club of true believers of Republicans. The study that Edsall referred to in his op-ed said, that if you somehow take these questions out of the context where someone are asking to prove their bona fides as a Republican, they say, yeah, we don't really believe that, or at least it's 20%, not 57%. Certainly there are some Americans who truly believe that. But I think for many people, the big lie is a way of saying, we're going to own the libs. We're going to show them, what for. We're not even going to recognize that Biden is a legitimate president, because in their minds, that is the functional equivalent of trying to investigate whether Vladimir Putin helped Trump win the 2016 election.
All good points, Rob. Thank you. And I think I have one last question from the chat, and I apologize if I've missed any. The chat has been a great way for us to kind of communicate with each other. What do you feel are Biden's key accomplishments this past year?
Returning decency, dignity, and honor to the presidency and to America's standing in the world. I don't think we can underestimate the fact that he has reclaimed the rule of law and a sense of normalcy. It's hard to remember even a year ago how out of joint things were. The first thing. The second thing is, my God, he drove child poverty to the lowest level in 50 years. I mean, that counts for something. The unemployment figures are just tremendous. His stewardship of the economy and his response to the pandemic, as difficult as it has been steady, honest, science-based. I mean, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and we have this mensch of a man, who with dignity and grace and intelligence is leading us through a very difficult time. And he's taking on a lot of water because of an uncontrollable virus. But I think we should recognize what he has done there. And I guess the other thing I would close with is to say that his appointments to the federal judiciary have been hopeful, because they have been really high quality candidates, unlike the candidates appointed by Trump that were frequently rated as unqualified by the American Bar Association. First of all, they're qualified candidates, but secondly, they reflect the face of America. And that's important going forward. That will leave a mark for 30 years on American democracy. So I think we should all be very thankful that he's been able to do that with the help of Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate.
Okay, thank you. I think I have one last question. Someone said, and I kind of paraphrase from the chat as we look at the different questions. Someone said, how can we kind of lead the narrative instead of, being subject to, these narratives that keep coming along?
Yeah, so so let me make a couple of suggestions and admit to you that I don't follow these. I'm not a big social media guy. I write a newsletter and that's really all I do. I don't have a big presence on Twitter or Facebook or TikTok or anything like that. For those of you who do, I urge you to use social media tools to spread the positive news. I mean, I'm going to take on Tuesday, in the Tuesday newsletter, again, with your permission, this presentation and of what Swing Left is doing nationally and then locally, and say to people, here's the model. This is what we should be doing. So point one, spread the word, the content that is in what you've put together on social media. Secondly, don't sell yourself short. Just write letters to newspapers, comment, for example, in the comment section of articles in the New York Times, the Washington Post. I've done that, and I've had the authors of those articles, write back to me and say, okay, can we talk? I see what your point's doing. Don't leave an information vacuum for Republicans to fill. And then finally, my final point is lead by example. Donna, I think you said you had 2 grandchildren on this call.
I do.
I hope one of their memories is of their grandmother canvassing on the street. That will stay with them for their lives.
Yes. So Danny, where are we at with the time? Because I want to be very respectful.
Yes, that was perfect timing. So Rob, thank you. And Renee, thank you for leading the question answer period. We are actually at the end of our kickoff party. It's been such a pleasure spending the past hour with all of you. And I'm going to turn this over to Donna for just some final closeout remarks. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, Rob, that was a hard act to follow. And I so appreciate everything you said. I feel like I have just had a mega dose of anti-anxiety medication. So thank you for that. Okay, guys, there you have it. A solid national strategy to protect and even expand our Democratic majority, and a comprehensive local plan to effectively put it into action. You've heard us speak. You know what's at stake. Now let's all get out there, dig in, and together, let's have some fun as we save our democracy. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you soon.